Hi there, and welcome to Palmerston House Minis. Today we're diving into an exciting project inspired by Christine Leah Frassoni's incredible book, The Big Book of a Miniature House. We're going to create an antique-looking tile floor using just a few supplies from the local craft store. Let's get started. First, let's gather the supplies that you will need. Bristol board. This will make up both the tiles and the floor base. This is a high-quality, heavy paper that is both smooth and stiff like cardboard. Bristol board comes in various thicknesses and sizes, but I love the versatility of the Strathmore 300 series, which I have in a 9 by 12 inch pad. It's smooth and rigid and can withstand the application of paint, glue, and grouting of this project without warping. I have included links in the description below for all of the supplies used in this project. Next, you will need a very sharp or mechanical pencil and a gridded ruler to map out your template and measure your tiles. Next, you will need 2 colors of acrylic paint. I used Deco Art Americana in warm white for the main tiles, and for the corner tiles, I used Delta Ceram Coat in charcoal. If you don't already have a good X-Acto knife, you'll need one to cut the tiles, and you will also need tweezers to help you place the tiny corner tiles onto the floor. Finally, you will need Mod Podge gloss finish to seal the tiles and provide sheen before grouting, tacky glue to affix your tiles to the base, and spackling compound to grout the spaces between the tiles. Okay. Now we are ready to start making the floor. First, we need to create a template of the floor section we want to tile. We do this by carefully measuring the dimensions of the floor and transferring these measurements to 2 pieces of the Bristol board. One sheet will be the floor base and the other will become our tiles. Let's start with the main tiles. Take your sheet of Bristol board and apply the acrylic paint that you have chosen for your tiles. Be sure to apply the paint evenly to coat the entire sheet. It's important to make sure you apply a uniform and relatively thin layer of paint so you do not leave thick visual brush strokes. You can always add a second layer if you think it needs more saturation, but keeping the paint even and uniform will create the most realistic look. We will use the same process for the corner tiles. Cut a piece of the Bristol board roughly 1/4 of the size of the main tile board, and then paint this using your second color of acrylic paint in the same method that you used for the main tiles. Once your paint has dried, you need to coat both the main tiles and the corner tiles with a layer of Mod Podge for added shine and protection. Just like you did with the paint, a clean, even coat is the goal here. If you haven't used Mod Podge before, don't be alarmed by the milky appearance at first. It will dry to a nice clear shine. This should dry in about 20 to 30 minutes, and once it's dry, you can prepare to cut the tiles. Okay, let's start by cutting the main tiles. Take your painted and glazed sheet, turn it over, and using your gridded ruler and pencil, mark your cutting lines on the back by drafting evenly spaced horizontal and vertical lines. You will space these according to your desired tile dimensions. In this case, I went with a 5/8 inch square. This is the 1/12 scale equivalent of a 7.5 inch life-size tile. After you have marked the entire sheet, carefully cut along the guidelines to create the individual tiles. I like to use an X-Acto knife, and without a ruler, just carefully follow the line to cut the tiles. You will then need to trim off the corners to make room for the tiny corner tiles. I trimmed off 1/8 of an inch at a 45-degree angle. You can mark this ahead of time if you prefer, but after cutting a few and getting a sense of the size and the angle, I just went by eye and it was a lot faster. To make the 1/8 inch square corner tiles, draw 1/8 inch parallel lines on the back of your finished sheet, and then cut along these lines to create 1/8 inch wide strips. Finally, cut these strips into 1/8 inch tiny squares. Let's get ready to lay the tiles. We'll begin by preparing the base. Mark the floor base with grid lines slightly larger than the tiles. I usually make these roughly 1/16 of an inch larger than my main tiles. These lines will guide in laying the tiles. Spread a thin layer of tacky glue over a small section of the grid lines, covering enough space for 6 to 9 tiles. Align the main tiles using the grid lines as a reference, ensuring there is 1/16 of an inch space between each tile. Repeat this process until the entire sheet is covered. Next, place a small dot of glue in the corner spaces between the main tiles. Using tweezers, carefully position the corner tiles and press them down firmly. Allow the glued tiles to dry completely before handling or moving the floor base. This ensures solid adhesion and prevents tiles from shifting in the next steps. Adding the grout pulls it all together to create that finished, authentic look. Begin by spreading a thin layer of the joint compound in a small section of the floor. Gently push the joint compound into the edges of the tiles, and using your finger to spread it, ensuring the grooves are filled. While working, use a soft, damp cloth to clean the tiles and remove excess grout, leaving it only in the cracks. Finally, buff the tiles with a soft, dry cloth to restore their shine and remove any grout residue. And there you have it, a stunning, antique-looking tile floor for your miniature house, made entirely by hand. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and feel inspired to try it out on your own. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or any suggestions for future videos. Until next time.